I'm going to share with you my perspective on building generational wealth in 2024. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Financial Freedom Fast Lane. And remember, the quicker you get to your dream life, the longer you get to live it. And I'm your host, George Acheampong. We are talking about creating generational wealth in 2024. Okay, creating generational wealth in 2024. But as you guys know, I like to give you the news you could use before we get into the topic. So let's get into it. All right, first up on the docket, U.S. stocks rose sharply on Friday as investors are feeling confident that we are moving in the right direction, that the Fed is trending to be able to make those rate cuts at some point in the year, and off the news of a softer landing than expected when it comes to the job market, right? So stocks rose on that news. And notably, Apple rose 6%. Apple is my largest holding in my portfolio, OG company, OG holding in my portfolio, and they rose 6% off of the news of a huge record historic stock buyback, somewhere I think in the range of $110 billion, right? Which is crazy. And on top of that, they are promising greater sales in the upcoming quarter. Live Nation also rose, I want to say 7%. They had a 21% increase in revenue growth, which made investors very confident in the stock. Square actually dropped about 1%, which was interesting considering the fact that they actually beat expectations, and they rose earlier in the week, but by the end of the week, that those wins tapered off, and they ultimately closed out down 1%, right? And also something I'm going to start doing every single week is I'm going to give you a stock that you can do some further research on that I think might be a banger, one that might be worthy of investing in. And this week, it's a little known French company. Let's call it the French Connection. You can't even plan that. I wasn't even trying to make that connection, you know, French wine, French Connection. But let's call it the French Connection, right? It's a little known company, ticker symbol THLLY, right? And this company is a perfect mix of defense and AI, right? And so when we look at the economic landscape right now, I think this is a company that is an amazing one to keep an eye on. I am going to read off some information, so bear with me. Just I want to give you guys the facts and the news that you could use. So according to Barron's analysts, the little known French company, Thales, ticker symbol THLLY, is a perfect mix between defense and AI. The company has 3 divisions, but its defense division accounted for over half of its first quarter revenue, about $2.5 billion. The defense arm also produces the fastest growth, with sales up 13.1% and orders up 128% over the last 12 months, right? So this is a company you might want to keep your eye on. I'm bullish on it. I'm going to be doing some more research. Add it to your watch list. Check out the trends. And maybe it might be something you want to add to your portfolio. All right. Now, let's get into today's topic, how to build generational wealth in 2024. All right. This is my strategy, right? This is my truth. I'm not saying it's the truth. Obviously, there's plenty of ways to build generational wealth, but you're watching the Financial Freedom Fast Lane show, and I'm the host of that show. So I'm going to share with you my perspective on building generational wealth in 2024. All right. So the first thing you want to do, if you want to build generational wealth in 2024, is you want to develop a high income skill set. Okay. No matter what anybody tells you, your greatest lever for building wealth, right, in 2024 is developing a high income skill set. Why? Because it's much easier, right, to make $1,000 than to get an investment return that's going to yield $1,000, typically speaking, right? Or 10,000 or whatever your goal is. So when you have a high income skill set, it gives you more resources to be able to deploy towards building wealth. You could be the best money manager in the entire world. You could not spend $1 on the latte or never go out to eat, live a very meager lifestyle. But if you just don't make enough, you'll never have enough available or discretionary money to allocate towards building wealth, right? It doesn't mean that you can ignore being a good steward of your finances. I've already did a podcast episode on that. It doesn't mean that you can ignore saving money. But what I'm saying is the greatest lever that you have to changing your situation is changing your income. How will you change your income? By being more valuable to the marketplace, okay? You get paid for the value you bring to the marketplace. So understand, what skills can I learn that people consider high value, that the market, forget people, that the market deems as high value, and I can charge accordingly. Should I do a podcast on high value skills that anybody can leverage in 2024? Let me know in the comments. But that's going to be your greatest lever, right? So the first thing you got to do is identify, what high income skill set am I going to acquire, right? Running paid media, paid ads for people is a high income skill set, right? Social media management could be a high income skill set, right? Accounting, bookkeeping. There's plenty of things that you could do to make substantially more money than you're making right now. And in doing so, if you're a good steward of your finances, those are all resources, or at least some of which you can use towards building generational wealth. Okay. So that's the first step. The second thing that you can do to start building generational wealth in 2024 is turn that high income skill set into a scalable business, right? So let me take a quick step back. A high income skill set is where you make you money. If you're a world-renowned speaker, people will pay you $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 to speak. That's a high income skill set. That's amazing. You should keep doing that. The only bottleneck on that, though, is that there's only so many stages you can speak on a year, especially if you have a family, especially if you have kids or a wife, etc. Right? There's only so many stages that you can speak on in a year. So a scalable business, right? Turning a high income skill set into a scalable business is, how can I reach more people, right, at scale? So for someone who has a skill set that's worthy of being invited to speak, it might look like writing a book. You can sell it to millions of people from the comfort of your home. It might look like developing a course, packaging up your intellectual property people can consume, right? And buy it at 1 o'clock in the morning while you're asleep. It might be a coaching program, right? It might be hosting a virtual summit. It could be a number of things, but depending upon what your high income skill set is. But essentially, how can I package up the skill set that I have and turn it into something scalable? And generally speaking, the way that you turn a high income skill set into a scalable business is where people and or systems, I'm not going to say or, where people and systems make you money, right? That is a scalable business. The easy example I always like to use is, if I was a barber, no matter how good I was, shout out to my barber, because my barber is amazing. If you haven't been able to tell, right? Doesn't matter how good the barber is or how much the barber charges, there's still a cap on his or her ability to make money, right? But if I opened up barber shops, that means that there's several other people that can cut, and I can make money even if I don't touch clippers at all. So just think, how can I expand? How can I duplicate myself? And you're probably moving in the right direction with creating something scalable. Now, the reason why that is key to generational wealth is because if you set up the right way, that's going to be something that can run without you, right? And to make generational wealth, you obviously, it has to be for the next generation. You're probably not going to be here for the majority of it if done correctly. All right, the third thing you can do to create generational wealth in 2024 is invest in the stock market, right? Investing in the stock market is one of the lowest barriers to entry, right? Whether you have $50,000 or $50, you can get started. It doesn't matter what your credit score is. None of that. Doesn't matter what your resume is. Doesn't matter who likes you or doesn't like you. You can get started with investing in the stock market, right? And you can start owning the best companies in the world, right? By simply investing in the stock market. And so while you're making money in your active business that we just talked about, or even if you are a W-2 employee, that's fine too. You can take a percentage of that money and invest it in the stock market. So now your money is working for you without you having to work for it. What I always like to say is, some of the best CEOs in the world, they work for George, right? When Google does well, George does well. When Amazon does well, George does well. When Tesla does well, George does well. When Nvidia does well, George does well. List goes on. So the benefit in this is that even if you have zero desire to be an entrepreneur, you don't have to be an entrepreneur, but you do have to be an owner, right? You don't have to run businesses, but you do have to own them, okay? And the way that you can own them is the easiest way that you can own them is by investing in the stock market, right? Love the stock market. I think it's one of the greatest asset classes known to man. Now, the next thing that you can do to build generational wealth in 2024 is to own real estate. All right. It's to own real estate. Now, I wasn't the biggest fan of real estate for quite some time. So I'm thinking to myself, why in the world would I invest in this property, right? The mortgage might be $1,100. This particular property is going to pay me $1,400. I got to have a property manager unless I want to manage it myself. I got to put a little bit of money away in case of emergency for maintenance. Like when it's all said and done, what am I even netting out? What is the hassle? I could have a 1-hour consultation with somebody and make more money than that, right? But I was thinking about it the wrong way. Number one of the main purposes for investing is to hedge against inflation. It's the preservation of capital. So I could ask myself, do I want to keep my money in the bank, high yield savings account, right? Or do I want to find places to invest my money that preserve the capital, right? That lets me know that at minimum, my capital will probably keep pace with inflation, right? So why wouldn't I invest in real estate, right? Because I was only thinking about the cash flow. Like, why would I go through all the house but only get $100 a month or whatever it is in cash flow? Well, genius, because when you have a tenant in your property, now they're responsible for paying down the debt. That means the asset's going to continue to grow in value on their dime, right? Not to mention, real estate is one of the best asset classes when it comes to tax breaks because you get to take advantage of depreciation, which can dramatically offset your tax bill, right? So that's amazing. So you get equity appreciation, you get to take advantage of depreciation, and you get cash flow, right? So, and those are just some of the benefits. So real estate is a great asset to invest in because you can continue to have tenants in it. Then as time goes on, when we talk about building generational wealth, that cash flow is going to grow because rents are going to increase, but your mortgage isn't going to increase, and the debt is getting paid down by the tenants. So when you look at it holistically and not just like, what is the current today's cash flow, right? Then you'll realize that real estate is almost always a great play. Now, granted, just like any other investment, it has its ebbs and flows, its pros and cons. You could have a bad tenant. You could have, obviously there could be things that go wrong with the house that eat away at your profits. Sure, right? But the only way to lose the game is to not play it. That's the only way to lose it, right? Now, I'm not going to sit up here and make it seem like real estate is all a bed of roses, right? But it is and can be an amazing addition to your portfolio, especially if your desire is to build generational wealth, right? So investing in real estate in 2024 will help you build generational wealth. All right. So one of the most important things that you have to do in order to build generational wealth in 2024 is you need to get life insurance. For me, what helped me really understand the importance of life insurance, even as someone who knew that they were going to build wealth through investing, was that life insurance did two things really well, right? So let's say back in, I don't know, when I was 23, which was some years ago, right? You can leave it to your imagination. I was just getting started in my journey towards building wealth, right? I still had the same desire then that I do now. Obviously, it's evolved a little bit, but I still have the same desire to build generational wealth and leave something behind, but I hadn't really accumulated many assets yet, right? So what life insurance ultimately provided was that dotted line connection to say that if something happened to George 10 years ago, right, he could still ensure that he can leave a legacy to his family, even though he hadn't accumulated as many assets as he has now, right? So it provides that kind of dotted line protection. It's like, hey, until you fill up the line with your actual assets, life insurance is going to bridge the gap to ensure that you can leave money behind as you desire, right? Now, the other thing that life insurance does really, really well is it can create liquidity, right, when you pass away. Because when you pass away, you're going to have funeral expenses. You're going to have other outstanding things that you need to take care of. And some of those assets might be tied up. There might be a whole process, right, to get your family the appropriate access to your money. However, you have some things that might need to be taken care of relatively immediately, and you don't want to put that burden on your family. So what life insurance can do is create that immediate liquidity on a tax-free basis to ensure that your family isn't stressed out about how to proceed with things on your behalf, right? So getting life insurance in 2024 is essential to building generational wealth. Here's the hack, or here's the truth. If you got $1 million policy, it got approved tomorrow, right? Knock on wood, and you passed away the next day, right? Your family you've now ensured that you had $1 million generational wealth plan, right? Because your family is now going to inherit $1 million. Now we're going to make sure that it gets to them and the right things happen with this last point of today's show. But at minimum, you know that if I had that $1 million policy, something happens to me, right, my family's going to be okay. Now, there are obviously some clauses with life insurance in terms of, how proceeds get paid out. Won't get into the specifics on this podcast, but generally speaking, assuming you die of natural causes, or some type of accidental death that is within the scope of reason, right, your family is going to get paid out that money, no issue, especially if you get approved, because they're going to ask you all sorts of questions to ensure and have a good understanding of your lifestyle, right? So if you do nothing else, make sure you get that life insurance to ensure that your family is going to be protected and that you can create generational wealth in 2024. All right. And last but not least, make sure you get a trust, right? Trust me on this one. Get you a trust. Why? So that you can make the trust the beneficiary of all your assets, and then the trust can dictate who those assets are going to be distributed to and how they're going to be distributed. The key difference I want you to understand between a will and a trust, right, besides probate and all that jazz, is that when you get a will, right, the plan that you wanted for the money will die with you, right? You can guarantee that. It will die with you, right? Now, the beneficiaries will get what they're entitled to, right? I want Susie to get 100,000. I want Mary to get 200,000. I want Jake to get 50, whatever, right? They'll get it. But what they do with it, that plan dies with you. Now, many of y'all are familiar with the popular show, Power. The first iteration of it, I think it's like Power Book 2 right now, or whatever, right? But when Ghost died, he had stipulations in his trust that said Tyree can get access to this money when he graduates, et cetera, et cetera. So that way it kind of creates a safeguard and a guardrail to ensure that what you want to happen with the money actually happens. That's where generational wealth goes wrong. Generational wealth isn't just gifting your family the money, because if they don't have the mindset, if they don't have the mentality, right, then the money will get squandered. So part of generational wealth, which is kind of a bonus tip, is don't just pass down the money, pass down the methodology, pass down the mindset, right? And if you still don't trust them, pun intended, then put stipulations in place for their own good, right? Because I know somebody like blessed me with like $1 million when I was 18. I probably wouldn't be sipping non-alcoholic wine, right? So just make sure that you get a trust so you can create stipulations, not to like be a control freak, but to create stipulations in the best interest of preserving and protecting your family's legacy. All right. So guys, I hope this was helpful on learning how to build generational wealth in 2024. And remember, as always, freedom is for sale if you're willing to pay the price. Until next episode, guys, peace.